This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
L.A. Law, from the co-creator of Hill Street Blues and the producer of Cagney and Lacey.
Lawyers.
Hey, it's jungle out there.
My father's worth $1 million to your firm.
I'll see what I can do.
You do that.
Now assume the freaking position.
You lay a hand on me and I'm gonna kick your fat butt.
If I can't get justice here, I will get a gun and I'll do it myself.
That's enough. You're in contempt.
Your Honor, she's threatening. You think I won't?
I am not against earning a buck, as long as we don't sell off our humanity in the process.
I represent the system as well as the client, Miss Moore. I may not always believe in the client, but I have to believe in the system.
What am I supposed to believe in?
These are the professionals who will take you into the jungles of American justice. L.A. Law, coming to NBC.
The men and women of Hill Street put their lives on the line every day.
Nobody's gonna hurt you, you hear me?
In every possible way.
It's Hill and Renko. They're both in intensive care. Doesn't look good.
It's the greatest cop show of them all. Hill Street Blues. Life on the Hill can be dangerous.
If you're looking for trouble, son, congratulations, you just found it.
It can lead to romance.
I feel wonderful, Phil.
Or revenge.
If you don't get off my back, you're gonna be one dead cop.
And sometimes it turns out to be a drag.
He's fast and he's strong, so be alert.
Nobody touches my upper lip.
Welcome all. Here for another, once again, just retro TV summary. And I'll never fail to be a ginormous fan of TV legend Steven Bochco, best known for getting a start writing Columbo and then going on to do all kinds of edgy sitcoms and cop shows. I present to you shows that you probably knew were big landmarks in both your parents' and grandparents' households. I present to you L.A. Law and Hill Street Blues. Once again, these were some of my parents' favorites, possibly due to both just great speeches, great staging, great topics, great workplace discussions, sexy yet talented actors. And they're both on Hulu. They added LA Law actually last year in 2023, and Hill Street Blues has been up for a while and is almost always circulating on antenna channels and retro TV stations, especially Heroes and Icons channels. And I'll start with LA Law, since that's the one that really took off. Hill Street Blues is the bigger one, but I need more time to get my thoughts on that. I think the reason LA Law is just like so imitated is because the actors owe their career to it, and more on them later. But, you know, it's co-created by Terry Louise Fisher and Bochco. You know, this was one of those people would make fun of it and he would lean into the parody. At one point, there was like an SNL parody joking how the cast should just do a skit in the nude, and he's like, that's not a bad idea. And he did a TV guide or like People magazine kind of publicity stunt for that. And so it was one of those, it was out the door, up and running, intense and dramatically appealing. Everybody was watching it. Even people who didn't care for it were watching it. It's pretty outdated by today's standards, but I recommend everybody just check out some of it just to see where some of your favorite themes and Hollywood performers and just the legal genre itself really got cooking. And there's some comedy, there's some other drama. Again, without this, you don't get TV master producer David E. Kelley, who got his start as a entertainment lawyer. And it's so funny how both he and Bochco, really ignite the show. Bochco's coming up with the stories. Kelly's coming up with some of the kick-ass dialogue and episode writing. And both of them keep leaving to pursue other projects. Both of them want to work on Doogie Howser, and yet the show kept collapsing at NBC. And it's just so funny how now you look at some of today's edgy shows like Suits, and it's like, oh, these are that is absolutely LA Law on steroids. So why do people really like it? I think it's ultimately just, it was just one of the many shows. Like, you already had workplace stuff like Mary Tyler Moore. You already had just other campy escapism like The Love Boat and Gilligan's Island, and even sitcoms like The Brady Bunch that we've all covered on this podcast at one point. LA Law was interesting in that it basically just showed antics that were at a law firm, all based on four partners. Richard Dysart, who you guys will know from various baseball movies, as well as The Thing, was Leland, the founding partner, but he was not only the partner, but the patriarch. But people like him because they always feel like he's the granddad or dad they never had. Arnie Becker, of course, was the star-making role for Corbin Burnson, who you guys will know for other movies and shows like Psych and The Dentist and Major League. But this is Major League, just that back-to-back, that was kind of what made him a A-list character actor for a while. And you wanted to be him. You look at Harvey Specter on Suits, that's kind of the same kind of deal. He's a lady killer, but he's also a divorce lawyer, and he's imperfect. He's often found with his pants down or cheating, and he lives with that burden the rest of the time. He had the public attorney and tax attorney played by, Ann and Stewart, played by Jill Eikenberry and Michael Tucker, and they were a married actor couple in real life. So much like Barbara Bain and Martin Landau on Space 1999 and Mission Impossible, that same kind of camaraderie is visible on screen, where these two actors who don't share the same surname are able to be just a charismatic couple on screen as well as off. And it really works for the movie. They always feel like that perfect middle class kind of just reliable neighbors, and they go for their various melodrama that sometimes gets a little tiresome but works. And then you get the managing partner, who's the son of the founder, Brackman, played by Alan Ratchins. You'll probably know him as the grumpy neighbor on Dharma and Greg. And he actually, believe it or not, was married to an actress who was the sister of producer Steven Bochco, so that's probably how he got the job. But yeah, he's a good actor, but he's just one of those, man, he knows how to play just a shithead. And he was the perfect example of how you're technically not a bad person, but you know how to be like, get on people's nerves and be annoying and bring unwelcome politics into the workplace. So this is ultimately why people dug it. They made it entertaining and sexy, and yet food for thought. And of course, Hurley Hamlin, model, Clash of the Titan star, got to play in litigation specialist, who gets into a relationship with the prosecuting attorney Van Owen, played by Susan Day, who's from the Partridge Family. And it's interesting how she also hangs out with Victor Cifuentes, played by Jamie Smits in his star-making role. He later stays close to the Steven Bochco train on NYPD Blue later. Then you had the law clerk turned associate, played by Michelle Green, another longtime TV star. Then you had Susan Rotan playing Roxanne, who was the secretary of Arnie Becker. And of course, she later begins a relationship with him later. And it's just interesting. It's just really, he also had the, just so many just rare portrayals. Like, then you had the associate Jonathan Rollins, played by Blair Underwood. And again, star-making role for him. And so whenever I see him be another authority figure or president or even a lawyer, once again, it's like, yeah, but it all started with this. I had seen him in a bunch of movies. Many of today's generations will have seen him in other movies and shows, Sex and the City, When They See Us, everything. But man, when he wants to be, he can be a great, director, tough guy actor, frightening psycho. And yet here, he was the underdog. He was like, man, and he's helping other underdogs. He's helping all kinds of stuff. And the cases were good. You didn't see him in as much detail, but it's great seeing Penny Johnson, Gerald from Larry Sanders Show and Star Trek Deep Space Nine in a few roles. You also see Alfre Woodard, the Oscar-winning queen herself, in the pilot episode. And so they brought up all kinds of topics, just like any show. I don't think they do it as good or as edgy as other shows, but at the end of the day, like, you'll just be blown away by just some killer speeches. And even when it gets soapy, you can switch to the next episode. So streaming's a good deal. They've only been able to release the first 3 seasons on DVD due to music rights issue, but that theme will get stuck in your head just because of that saxophone. Also, Larry Drake, that's right, who you might know from Darkman, among other bad guy roles. He got to be an Emmy-winning guy just because as the character Benny on LA Law, he was just such a realistic, just mentally challenged guy. He as just the guy who does all like the categorizing and alphabetizing and just an office messenger, and he just was so good at portraying that role to where some people actually thought he was mentally challenged. It's like, no, he's just a good actor. There's all kinds of other actors who joined the cast later. A. Martinez, who's best known to fans of Longmire and various other westerns and soap operas, was also on here. But yeah, I gotta say, the show, with today's eyes, I can see where it really fell off and people stopped watching it as much. It wasn't that it was too weird for its own good, like for some crowds, like The Sopranos or Oz or St. Elsewhere, but it's the same kind of deal. Where just not people thought it was cool, then they stopped paying attention, and it went on a little too long. I do like how it ended after 8 seasons, and since then they'd done a reunion movie in 2002, and they attempted to reboot it with Corbin Burnson and Blair Underwood a few years back, and it didn't go anywhere. But I think there's just so many great actors on here, many who unfortunately never got as big as they should have been. They're B-movie regulars. Sheila Kelly, who's married to actor Richard Schiff, was really good on here, but she had some hallucinations and breakdowns also in season 7 that made you go, this is just dumb, not well written. Even IMDb doesn't rank them very well. But yeah, she was good as Gwen, but man, she didn't get some of the good storylines down the road. And unfortunately, uh, I think everybody wanted the show to get a little more cartoonish just so they could. Like Diane Mulder, who was Dr. Pulaski on the lesser parts of Star Trek Next Generation Season 2, played a very unlikable gal named Rosalind, who had a very well known elevator death. It's so funny. She drives everyone crazy, then she starts getting all cutthroat, and then she dies in a freak elevator accident. And you got to see it to believe it. It really is very well done. And that's around the 5th season, after everyone's sick of her in season 4. And China Beach producer Patricia Green and Doogie Howser creator Rick Wallace worked on season 6. And then they did bring in John Tinker and John Messias for part of season 7. And that's probably why it didn't work. They just started going with hallucinations, and it just wasn't well done for that. Fortunately, William Finkelstein, who had worked with Bochco on the first 3 seasons, got to make the rest of the show bearable. But I think what really stands out is they bring in Debbie Mazur and what's his name? Last Temptation of Christ. Debbie Mazur plays great character named Denise, and then they bring Alan Rosenberg as Eli. So they were on another Bochco legal dramedy called Civil Wars, and they decided to bring those characters into the final season. And unfortunately, I can't find that show anywhere. It was one of those like 1 to 2 season kind of deals. But Rosenberg also has been in so many different movies and shows, and you might recognize his voice from some Disney movies. And I think, Debbie, you might even know from Beethoven and TV shows like Power. She's also awesome, but these characters really brought it up a notch. Just Denise and Eli were just so likable and flirtatious with everybody, and it ignited the show even more. Just showed that there could be all kinds of other characters. Unfortunately, it also wasn't the same without Jimmy Smits, but at the same time, the show was kind of too good for anybody at times. There are moments where you're like, the premise is just a lot of fun. Obviously, there's plenty of other stuff where it's just, you never saw any murder. It was always discussed uncomfortably with characters. It was one of the first. There's a CJ character that makes you wonder if that was inspiration for the character of the same name on West Wing. John Spencer, coincidentally, who was on West Wing later on as the chief of staff, is also on here. This is one of his first roles, and he's great. There are occasional just utter shocking moments, and I recommend people just look it up if they don't want to go through it, but there's a reason why it's still it holds a place in many people's hearts. There's even an episode that took place during the 1992 LA riots. It was even set 6 months before the premiere of season 7. So, I mean, that's just it. Like, there was always a lot of tension on the show, and I think that's why it did a hell of a job just with its material. Unfortunately, those who didn't enjoy it will only remember just kind of the off color and not well dated stuff and just various relationships. And all I can say is it was the typical kind of adult fiction that persisted in the mid 80s to early 90s. And but I think it deserves a look for those who are interested. it's also interesting seeing Conchita Ferrell, who's best known for Two and a Half Men, also in a being one of the supporting legal aides. There were some other people on here who I unfortunately didn't remember too well, like Lisa Zane, Cecil Hoffman, Michael Comsty, but I think that's just it. They just kind of were in and out. They were fine. It just there's two. I think if there's one issue I do have, it's they kind of had too many characters at times and didn't always know what to do with them. But some of the other recurring characters were interesting, like Brad Sherwood from Whose Line Is It Anyway got to play male nanny for Anne, which is interesting seeing him attempt some dramatic roles, before he became a comedian. Unfortunately, again, it's during one of the lesser seasons, but my point remains. Check it out if you're a Whose Line fan and can find the clips. Mario Van Peebles also, before he became, New Jack City director and a reliable, wonderful TV actor and B-movie star, also is in the first season as a conservative black lawyer who does the whole I'm done working for the man and works for a different law firm while still maintaining a friendship with Jimmy Smits's Victor character. It's, again, just the zany yet very well developed characters were kind of the heart of this show, even when the plots let them down. I mean, you can relate this to other shows, kind of like Ray Donovan or other Sopranos-esque kind of shows where you're just like, hey, this is back when a character could carry a show, even if the drama wasn't always well fleshed out. It's just it just was just intrigue at the highest degree. Now that I've taken up a bunch of our time, I'll also say that Hill Street Blues is pretty much the go-to for how procedurals are done. You got so many feature A-listers. Captain Ferrero was played by Daniel Travante, and he's an interesting lead of the Vice Squad in a Chicago implied city, because that's where it was filmed, though it is never mentioned. Yeah, Joe Spano, who you guys will recognize from NCIS. Just so many engaging actors, many who have gone on to become directors in their own right, and lots of, again, workplace material. Dick Wolf gets his start, writing and producing episodes in the final season, and it's the perfect example of how to do a 7-episode kind of deal, just because it also introduces us to future Deadwood writer David Milch. I mean, it had all kinds of topics from racial profiling to a cross-dressing lawyer who becomes a judge, just all kinds of how to report domestic abuse, and yeah, just all kinds of stuff, and how being a narc could destroy your life, and especially if you weren't good at much else except being a cop. But yeah, if there's anything, I'd say that it's the best at just showing just on foot police patrols. Bruce Weitz was great. John B. Syking, who we'd lost recently, and you guys might know as Doogie Howser's dad, played the lieutenant of the SWAT team, and they were able to make it darkly humorous because he's such an ignorant bigot and prick. You had Kill Martin as one of the other officers, Veronica Hamill as a attorney, very annoying Southern guy, Charles Hyde, who's, plays Andy, and he's also become a director. Michael Warren plays Robert, and he's one of the guys who's pretty awesome. A lot of the desk sergeants are pretty reprehensible, but fortunately it gets taken over later by Lucille Bates, played by Betty Thomas, who you guys will know as a director on movies and shows like Dream On, Private Parts, and Dr. Dolittle. And plenty of other actors who have done all kinds of American and Canadian TV since then. I found it interesting playing how there was even some future Terminator guys on here for a while, Star Trek guys. Dennis Franz, who's later on in NYPD Blue, plays two different cops and both of them crooked. It's very edgy, even for its time. Mimi Rogers plays a psychiatrist. David Caruso plays like an Irish gang leader. Jennifer Tilly, Joaquin Phoenix, Jonathan Banks, Stanley Kamel, Ali Sheedy, all kinds of actors are on here. Lawrence Fishburne. But I dug how Linda Hamilton was just a very strong portrayal of a rape victim who was coming in, giving a realistic testimony. Michael Biehn played a douchebag who was an officer accused of doing some hazing activity in a police frat club. So that's just it. It gave you an idea of just how these guys might be your heroes, but some of them are also, heroes only in, by label. And it's going to be hard to watch and by some of today's eyes. So only if you want to watch just a show that was bleak yet very compelling at showing these, unusual characters that possibly existed at one time or another. And especially if you want to see how it inspires plenty of other, Dick Wolf and True Detective and and even shows like Bosch, just the hard-boiled kind of anti-hero shows. And of course, some episodes I can't stand because they're just so realistic to where you're just like, man, I wonder if some of today's awful cops got inspired by this show. You just can't help but wonder. But it is actually a good show. I'm just saying, just be prepared for moments where you're like, yeah, that really got under my skin. It's probably more realistic than the filmmakers even realize, it's not just good acting. Yeah, it would never be in my top 10 shows, but it would definitely be as a must see, just procedural, and definitely be in a top 100 just because it is just so complex. And yet you could basically call it like Dog Day Afternoon or Serpico, the TV show, at times if you really want to. But again, compelling personas make for a very good time. And that's it for our retro TV spiral. We hope you enjoyed. Summing up, 2 TV gems. Check them out if you haven't, guys. And be entertained.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small-town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up